I don't know why I'm bothering with this. Maybe it's the whiskey. Or maybe it's the need to get some kind of outside perspective from people who won't be able to tell my family about just how much of a psycho I'm turning out to be. Maybe it's a little bit of both. See, I run a small property out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not going to tell you where, but just know it's out in the woods. I'm a craftsman, see. I sell pieces I make out of my shop. Nothing huge, just the usual kind of stuff that rich people who want to appear outdoorsy buy. Lights made out of deer antlers. Sheds mostly, but they don't need to know that. Tables, lounges, and cabinets made from the odd piece of wood. The business was handed down to me by my uncle. He had enough connections with a few wealthier families to keep things rolling. It used to be more of a side thing when I was younger, but, life happens. See, I'm not rich by any means, but the property's paid for. A lot of the materials I use come from just walking the several acres we own. Fallen trees for reclaimed wood. Deer antler sheds are pretty common in the spring. Occasionally a group of coyotes will wander through, and that means I end up with some bone for knife and gun grips and some fur that sometimes will sell as a wall hanger. It's not glamorous, but it keeps me supplied for my better selling pieces. And it also gives me something to feed the crayfish down by the creek. I'm telling this to let you know that, well, I'm not much of a people person. I live alone. Family visits, sure, but since the divorce, my kids don't really visit. I'm not sure I really blame them either. My son still takes my calls, but he always tries to get out of them. So when I saw something like what I caught on my game camera 2 weeks ago, well, I don't really have anyone to tell. I'm definitely not telling my brother. He's too much of a drunken ass to really listen. He just thinks I'm going crazy like Mom did. But I'm not sitting here talking about angels trying to take me away. Whatever it is, it's furry. First thought that came to mind was maybe a large black bear, but that didn't really sit right with me. See, the thing moved quick. I've seen black bears, and sure, they can run, but around here they're used to being the biggest thing. They move slow, almost lazy, unless there's some good food on the line. Every time I caught a glimpse of this thing, it was moving quick and steady, not stopping to sniff or check things out, just a straight line. Usually it was too far away to really be in focus. If I was lucky, it might show up at the edge of a camera, maybe a few seconds of black fur in frame directly below one, but never enough for a real good look. Sure, it could have been just a skittish bear, but I don't know. Maybe it just smelled me on the cameras. The way it moved, though, it always gave me a feeling of, I'm going somewhere. That just isn't right for an animal like that. So eventually my thoughts circled around to, what else is wandering through a big stretch of wilderness with nothing out here but the occasional buck and a stream not worth a damn for fishing? Poachers, maybe. Or druggies from town looking for a place to tent up for a while. Meth heads will do that, see, every now and then. Move out to the woods for whatever reason. After all, the shapes on the camera were mostly just decent-sized black blobs. Could have just been a coat for all those 10-megapixel cameras now. The usual routine was to check the footage once a week. The cameras mostly took pictures in bursts of 5 and would start overwriting older shots if you didn't clear them out. Usually I used them just to make sure nobody was doing anything too dumb out there. And hunting, obviously. I'd never seen much worth talking about, though. After watching that footage, I figured I'd test the bear theory. Not hard to do. Black bears love an easy meal. I still had some offal from the last hunt that I hadn't processed in a fish bay yet. I let it thaw overnight, and next day I tossed a few scraps out in plain sight of the cameras. Figured the thing would lumber up to it and catch itself a little snack. The week passed by pretty quickly after that. An order came in for a classic armchair frame that needed some weirdly specific engravings done. By hand only, too. Weird, but nothing I couldn't handle. I've had weirder requests that paid less, so I was happy to oblige. Once I let the client know the armchair was ready to go, I got myself set. Thermos loaded up with coffee. It was finally time to do my rounds. When I noticed the bait was gone, I felt a little smug. Figured I'd caught the dumb animal on camera finally. Swapped out the SD cards and just took my time walking back home. I wasn't happy with what I saw. Coyotes. A lot of them. Apparently the meat had attracted more of the little pests, or at least that's what should have attracted them. Coyotes are annoying things. They eat just about anything, even each other. But they're not stupid. They learn what people usually are and go around. Packs scrounge through my land or pass through it, but they don't hang out. Every once in a while, a few get brave and poke around, but I'm pretty quick at taking them down. Seeing more than just a couple at a time is odd, especially after I just cleared a few out last month. And they certainly don't travel close enough to my house to trip the cameras that they did. And the worst part, that damn thing was still there, in the background. It looked like it was just strolling along a ridgeline while 4 or 5 coyotes stood around my camera, nipping at deer liver. So I made up my mind. It wasn't a smart decision, but it was the one I made. Oiled up the family 30-06 and got ready for a classic coyote clear out. I figured if anyone was hanging around, the sound of gunfire would encourage them to clear out. I wasn't planning on keeping pelts this time, and I didn't feel like breaking out the 223 in case something was off with the bear. I don't need to think about it to know that that was a dumb idea. If it was meth heads, they'd probably just shoot me and be done with it. If it was local idiots, me just being there would have scared them off. It's not like poachers around here were getting anything special, just regular old whitetail. And really, I should have told somebody. Left my son a voicemail, let someone in town know to maybe check on me in a day or two. But like I said, I'm not a people person. So I didn't. I checked the closest camera site first, the one that normally caught nothing but possums. There was nothing there but coyote scat. Figured the pack was bedding down deeper in, so I just kept walking. Second site, more of the same. It wasn't until about 2 hours into the walk that I finally saw something odd at the third site. A deer. Dead by the looks of it. But not by coyotes. At least, I don't think so. It was laid out with its back to me. Looked like it had taken a shot to the head, judging by the bloody spot on top of its skull. Poachers it is, then. But why leave it? From behind, it looked like a solid deer. Even if it was out of season for antlers, that's a lot of meat to just walk away from. As I got closer, I noticed the second wound. It had been slit open. No, that's not quite right. It had been cut. The cut was maybe only half a foot wide, just below the ribs, around lung height. Weird place to start gutting. And that's when things started to click. This wasn't an old kill. Even if the coyotes hadn't found it yet, something would have torn into this thing, especially if it sat overnight. My chest tightened, and I was very aware of the fact that I was a middle-aged guy, alone in the woods with someone I don't know, who was leaving fresh kills on my property. I glanced around, rifle low but finger twitching. I never thought I'd be getting into a firefight, and the idea had me staring wide-eyed at the tree line. Brush, low branches, hilly ground, plenty of places to hide. I stepped back towards the deer and knelt, rifle still raised, and pressed my palm against its neck. And I'd never been so relieved to feel cold skin. Whoever did this might still be around, but I hadn't walked up on someone mid-gut. Took another look at the incision, trying to guess what they could have been after. Lung height, maybe lower, and it wasn't carved. Relatively clean for a cut like this. It might have been pried open a bit, but aside from that, just clean. I briefly thought maybe a predator was going for the wound, but there was just no tearing, no hanging fleshy bits, nothing to suggest a bite. So I stood back up, and it took me a minute. Joints aren't what they used to be, but Movement in the distance gave me plenty of motivation. Just beyond a hill, too far to see clearly, but close enough to recognize. A black, fuzzy shape, striding with purpose. Definitely not a bear. It was walking on two legs, not tall, maybe a little shorter than me, but definitely big enough to be a person. I raised my rifle, started lining up the shot, and then it stepped into a thick line of trees and just vanished. And that's where I should have stopped. Gone home, called the game warden, anything. I'd found an out-of-season kill, seen some weirdo in a fur jacket trespassing. Every bit of sense I had was screaming, just let the authorities handle it. I still don't know why I followed him. The thought that if I lost him, they'd just leave and come back later wasn't smart, but it was enough. I think part of me maybe just wanted to see for myself the thing that had just been sitting in the back of my head for the last month. Figured I'd lag behind, but if I kept a steady pace, I might catch up when they stopped. Maybe even find a campsite and finally have this dealt with. I don't know how they moved the way they did. I never heard anything. No snap branches, no crunch leaves. That black blur moved like a ghost through my property. No matter how far behind I thought I was, I always managed to pick them out. Sometimes just a speck at the edge of the trees. Other times, close enough to make out a fuzzy outline, but never close enough for them to catch sight of me. I guess they were about 5'3". They passed a fallen stump that came up to my chin, and they matched it almost exactly. It took me a while to realize they were walking from camera to camera, pausing just long enough for me to keep up without having to move too quickly. It took a while longer to notice the carvings. It was at the 6th camera when I finally saw it. The thing had lingered for a moment too long by the tree where the camera was strapped to. When I stopped to swap out the SD card, I saw a bare patch of bark not too far below the camera. They'd carved a crude circle within a circle. Maybe some kind of marker. Still, though, why go through all the trouble when just scratching an X would do? I followed them for another 2 hours, past the last of my cameras, and I'm pretty sure that after that they walked me in a circle at least once or twice before heading deeper into the woods. Places I'd never really bothered checking out. I was only barely sure we were even still on my land. As far as I knew, nobody lived anywhere near where we were going. The black figure crested another thickly wooded hill. I still had no earthly idea how they managed it without stumbling or making a single sound. I was moving at a painfully slow pace, trying to catch up quietly while they moved like it was nothing. They didn't even rustle the leaves. Hands buried in the dirt, gripping at exposed roots, crawling. No way I was going to be able to get up this hill without making some kind of sound, but it was as quiet as I was going to get. When I reached the top, hands covered in dirt and bits of dried leaves, I ignored the wet sensation under my right palm. At the time, I figured it was just mud. I only realized what it was when I put my weight on it and felt something give, sending me flopping on my side, face landing on whatever had slid out from underneath me. At first, I just thought it was scat. It took a lot to not come up cursing as I wiped what I thought was digested possum off my face. It made me pause when I saw the red on my hand. I stared at my open palm. A small speck of purple goo sat right near the center with a red trail smearing down from my fingertips. "What the hell?" I mouthed. I shook my hand and looked down at what I'd slipped on. An off-color hunk of meat, tangled with dirt and twigs. It almost looked like the bait I'd thrown out. Like a liver. Did the coyotes bring it up here? I'd never known them to bother carrying scraps, but a loud creak cut my thoughts off. I hadn't realized how long I'd been moving in silence, but whatever made that sound might as well have been right next to my ear. And then a thud. Soft, but definite. I was looking at a house. Or maybe cabin is more accurate. A simple log structure, sitting where I was certain nothing should have been. Planter boxes under plain glass windows. A light came on behind red curtains. I stood there, staring, trying to make sense of it all. This wasn't just someone passing through. Whatever I'd been following had settled in. At least, that's what I thought at the time. This is getting long, and I'm starting to pass out. The whiskey catches up to me faster than it used to. This has all still left me pretty exhausted. I'll post the rest soon if anyone's interested.